Irish. I am the superintendent, and as that just stated, we are recording this meeting so that we can post this on our website so that people can review at their own time. I would like to take a moment and introduce the panel so everybody knows who is on this call. So again, I'm Justin Irish, the superintendent, and I would like to introduce our assistant superintendent, Becky Clifford. Becky, please wave. Okay. And Angie Miller, who is our Director of Teaching and Learning. Toro Ramsey, who is our assistant, executive assistant. Emily Wade, who is our district nurse. Shannon Gilbert, who is our Director of Inclusive Services. Connie Sheridan, Director of Human Resources. And Robert Paul, who is our Director of Technology, Transportation, and Food Services. We have our 3 elementary principals online: Tara Dowd, Brian Hanneran, and Kevin Schwartz. And we have our middle school principal and safety coordinator, Patrick Harrington. Thank you all for being here today. Please feel free to jump in as I'm presenting. You will be hearing from our principals as well. Okay, I'm going to share screen. One moment. All right, we're here to talk about our opening of in-person learning for our kindergarten through 5th grade students, and then I'll share a little update as well about our middle school and high school. But before I do that, I just want to take an opportunity to thank everybody on this call today. I really appreciate, as we have been navigating these uncharted territory, I've really appreciated our community and our families who have been with us this entire time. Thank you for your understanding and your grace during these really difficult times. The ground is shaking beneath us, it's ever changing, and that's for us as well as for you. These are really uncertain times. But there's one thing that we have in common that isn't changing, and that's us and our community and the strength of our community and the ways in which we engage with each other, the ways in which we collaborate together, and your commitment to helping us navigate these really hard situations. I appreciate you. I appreciate the feedback that you've been providing all along. And I really appreciate even those of you who have disagreed or who have really been challenged by some of the decisions that we've had to make as a district, that you've always come to conversations with us with grace, with understanding, with empathy, and that we've been able to have dialogue about your feedback. And in fact, the feedback has really helped us shape where we are today. And I just appreciate all of you very, very much. As we move forward, I'm going to share with you just a big picture version of our big picture reality of what we are facing as a community and the circumstances of why we've had to make the decisions that we've had to make. As I've communicated in our weekly updates, we go by what the Department of Health and Governor has created, a decision tree it's a provision for in-person learning, and we have to go by this particular decision tree as we decide the best steps towards opening our schools to in-person learning. And what's important to understand is that we are currently in this range right here of moderate, which is 25 to 75 cases per 100,000 positive cases in Skagit County. And when we're in this moderate range, it means that we can start focusing on opening up our schools for elementary learning, and then move towards, if safe to do so, move towards secondary. We have to meet all of these safety measures, as well as all of these ways in which to respond to the health needs of our staff and our students. And if we can meet all of these requirements, then we can safely open our schools. And we are at the place where we can safely reopen our schools because we're in this moderate range. With direction and support from county health, we have been able to share our plans and how we can create a safe a safe environment for our students and our staff, and the ways in which we can monitor that safety daily for us to move forward. Here is our decision tree matrix that we made as a district. And we are saying that right now we are in moderate range, so therefore we can begin opening in-person learning for our kindergarten through 5th grade students. And that we can start opening low-risk athletics and co-curricular activities within our schools as well across the system. And then when we do this, we need to wait 4 weeks and reevaluate based on support from this particular decision tree. We will then wait to see how our cases go up or down in our county. And if they continue to rise in the county, which it could do, we might be told by county health to wait and not open up our secondary schools until those cases remain stable. If we remain stable or if we decrease within that 4-week period, then we can start opening our middle school, and then we will then open our high school. So this is our timeline. This is also posted online of how we are determining when to open our schools. Also, if we find that we have cases within our schools, if we have students or staff who are testing positive for COVID, we would consult with our county health and determine whether or not we would revert back to in-person learning, or whether, based on their recommendations, we need to move forward. If there are outbreaks of any sort, we would take a pause and or go back to remote learning altogether. Again, this is all focused around conversation, or this is all in partnership with the Department of Health as we move forward, and they are consulting us weekly. So why K-5 first? I've had a lot of questions about this from our community. And the Department of Health has stated in their recommendations that it's a careful phasing of in-person learning, starting with elementary. Then over time, if schools can demonstrate the ability to limit transmission in the school environment, schools should add in-person learning for middle and high. That goes back to the matrix that I just shared with you. Other factors that we consider for why K-5 first is that making sure that our students are learning. Our youngest learners need regular feedback and instruction from their teachers. I would actually argue that all students need that. But our earliest learners need, they're less independent, and they need that time to have ongoing instruction and feedback from their teacher. We also know, and research shows, that we need our kids to be reading, writing, and mathematical thinkers by the time they're in 3rd grade. And that research shows that if they are at grade level by 3rd grade, the chances of them graduating and having success post-graduation, that they're more successful post-graduation. So we want to make sure that our kids are getting literacy and math instruction as often as possible by their teacher in person. And then we are beginning to plan for, or are still in the phases of planning for middle school, beginning of December, and high school starting in February 8th. People have asked a lot, why February 8th? Well, by the time that we do our 4-week periods of monitoring transmission rates in the county, as well as in our local area and in our schools, we will be in around the break period around December, at the end of December, and January. We'd only leave a few more weeks left before the end of the semester. And the transition to bring kids in-person learning just a few weeks before the end of semester will be really stressful for staff and students, as well as the schedule changes that would have to happen in order to make that happen. The schedule changes, just transportation alone, is a complication. So we would have to monitor, or we have to change our bus schedule and our start and end day for high schoolers. And to do that before February 8th is almost impossible with the current Skyward structure and the way that the classes are set up for now. So now as we focus on our K-5, bringing our K-5 kids back, our primary focus is around safety, as well as safety for our athletics and extracurricular and other activities. We will be expanding athletics indoor and outdoor as we move forward, as long as it's safe to do so. We're in the process of trying to plan how we can coordinate our custodial staff to clean in between each section of indoor activity. We also know that CTE at the high school needs a lot of hands-on learning, and we're looking to bring our high school CTE programs back sooner than later. So what is our current reality with our health metrics? We are currently at 54.2, which is in that moderate range, as I shared earlier, which is between the 25 to 75 range. It looks, I talked to actually County Health today, and it looks like we're staying moderate within those, or we're staying consistent within this range. And let's hope that if everybody is following good social distancing or physical distancing, wearing their masks, that we will remain in this area throughout this winter. And so that is the hope. If that goes up, like I said earlier, we will be in we will consult with our medical professionals to determine next steps. So what is the step process to in-person learning? We will be offering in-person learning, half-day instruction. We're splitting the mornings and the afternoons for kindergarten through third grade first, beginning November 2nd, and then our fourth through fifth grade beginning November 9th. You'll have four half days, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and Wednesdays will be a fully remote learning day. Our K-5 students will be assigned to either cohort A or cohort B, and that has already been communicated to our families. We did have special considerations to make sure that we keep our siblings together, as well as consider extenuating circumstances for our families. And then for safety, we're going to get into this in more detail, but we will have a daily health attestation for your child. It's really important that you fill out that daily attestation so that we can smoothly transition your child into school each day. Students will be socially distanced in the classrooms, and then masks will be required for everybody on district property. We will not be eating lunch at school. The AM cohort will eat your lunch after you leave. You will be able to pick up your lunches and meals as you do now. And then the PM will eat before they arrive at school. And then we are providing transportation. So I wanted to share with you the challenges and some of the realities of opening up our schools, and so you to have a big picture. Starting off, first and foremost, student and staff safety is our highest priority in this entire transition process. We have very clear, explicit cleaning and disinfecting protocols every day in our schools between cohorts and each and every day before kids arrive in the morning. We are maintaining a 6-foot distancing between staff and students, as long as so students might be within close proximity with each other, as long as it's 15 minutes or less. If we have kids at all in together closer than 6 feet, they cannot be closer than 6 feet if it's 15 minutes or more. So we will always keep kids 6 feet apart unless they're passing each other in short distances, or if a teacher is working with a small group of kids for a short duration of time. However, during this time, they will always be wearing masks. We will group students by cohorts to limit, in case there is one positive case, to limit transmission. We'll have frequent hand washing. Kids will be wearing masks, as I stated. We're improving our ventilation. Our ventilation systems in all of our schools are actually really high quality, but in order to increase that, we will keep our windows open. We will have a star room or a containment room for kids if they show any symptoms at all, and those containment rooms will be cleaned deeply between anytime kids are in between using that space. We will also have an attestation process for families to attest whether or not their child has any symptoms and whether their child is fever-free. And then we'll have a holding room available for any child who comes to school that did not fill out that attestation, so that we can keep that student separate from all others until we've had direct contact with a family. And we are creating protocols for alternative situations. So if a child is showing symptoms or if a child at all tests positive, there will be clear protocols in place and partnership with Department of Health. And we'll go into more detail about that. The challenges of instruction in a remote and in-person model is insane. You have all felt this, experienced it daily. As you've seen our teachers working really hard to provide remote instruction, and for you as you've been providing support to your child. We are want to provide consistent instruction and feedback to our students about their learning. We want to provide a balance of balancing that remote and in-person learning has been a challenge, trying to design what that looks like. We've been learning new teaching strategies, trying to keep kindergartners engaged remotely is a hard task to ask our teachers and a hard task to ask of you as a family member. We know that this is a challenge. Tending to our social emotional needs of our kids and having that social emotional structures put into place while they're in person as well as at home, providing transportation and providing for the new supervision requirements to keep kids 6 feet apart, to keep the traffic flow in the parking lots, to manage the hallways, to manage students entering the office or the nursing station, to manage the learning loss that our students have faced since spring and to fill in gaps, and the instructional support for our families and the childcare struggles that I know that our community is facing. All of these things are challenges for us as a system in providing and designing the best model for you. But with that comes an added stressors. We have limited staffing and lost staffing as a result of COVID this year. We've had to create additional learning platforms and create a brand new school while trying to manage these challenges. We've had to increase the professional development for our staff to learn new ways to teach online and to learn new tools and new programs. We've had to purchase PPE. We've had to increase the disinfecting and cleaning processes, which is an additional cost to us. We've had to increase staffing needs for specialized circumstances such as technology, the increase in technology across our system and the infrastructure of delivering the synchronized supports for our families and students has, we've realized we've needed to increase our staffing. We've had to add additional technology. We've had reduced transportation funding that we've had that we've been challenged by. We have a lost enrollment, which is, means we have a 1 million of lost revenue across our system. And as a result of that lost enrollment, we will have a loss of levy collection next year, which is going to further us in the hole because we will our levy dollars that we receive from our amazing taxpayers is based on our enrollment. And when we have lost enrollment, that means lost revenue for our levy. We have ever-changing expectations at the state level, and we're managing the stress and anxiety and capacity not only of our staff, but of our families and our students. All of these things have created challenges for us in trying to design and meet the needs of our students, to meet the needs of our families, and to meet the needs of our staff. And so we're asked, why can't we provide a third option for families who do not want to return to in-person learning and who do not want to register for ASD at home? As you can imagine, with us trying to manage the safety needs, to redesign the instructional programs and the impact of all of that lost revenue and staffing needs across the system, it is impossible for us to build multiple options for families. We wish that we could, we want to. We are at our maximum capacity right now of what we're able to offer. So the big question is, when your kids arrive to school, what would a day in the life of your child look like? We will be offering more details about each school principal will be offering later this week another opportunity for you to engage in what does this look like specific to Island View Elementary, Fidalgo Elementary, or Mount Erie Elementary, and you will hear from our three principals. But our principals, our steering committee, our administrators across the system have been designing new structures for how we're going to deliver the best model for your kids when they return to school. So imagine Maria as a 5th grade student. We're going to run through the scenario really quick, and your principals again will go into further detail about it. But Maria will be, if she's traveling by bus, she is going to come to school. Like when and how does Maria travel to school? What protocols are in place for Maria wait for the bus? How does Maria board the bus? Where does Maria sit on the bus? How does Maria disembark from the bus? These are all questions and plans that we have developed in order to create the best safe environment for your kids. So I'm gonna ask that someone on our transportation panel talk to share what is the plan for Maria as she travels to school for the bus. So Robert or somebody else on our team, will you please give us details about what this will look like for Maria?
All right, I don't see Karen on the call, so I'll jump in. I'm Robert Pohl, Executive Director of Technology, Transportation, Food Services. So as Maria gets on the bus in the morning, she'll be waiting at her normal stop. She'll be greeted by her regular bus driver, the same one that she had gotten to know the previous year. When she gets on the bus, the driver will welcome her, make sure that she's wearing her mask, make sure that all is well with Maria. And then the bus driver will be directing Maria to sit in a seat by herself and loading the bus from the back to the front. So that way we get kids into the bus quickly, but they each will have their own seat. Prior to the bus ride, the bus driver has already done the safety check for the bus, but they've also done a thorough sanitation of the bus using the fogger mists to make sure that all of the frequently touched surfaces are all clean and ready to go before Maria gets on. Once Maria's seated safely and her peers are seated safely in the seat, again, one child per seat, then they'll move on to the next stop, pick up the next group of kids, again, making sure that everybody's seated safely, and then they'll proceed their way to school. When they offload the bus, once they get to the school, they'll be doing so, being socially distant. So the driver will direct each student to leave the bus one by one to make sure that they've got some distance in between and all kids are wearing their masks and ready to go for the day.
I can jump in and take it from there, Robert. Number
Perfect.
2.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Tara.
Yeah, Maria arrives at school. There will be staff members greeting the bus and disembarking the bus. Staff members that will direct Maria to wherever her cohort is lined up. And that's going to differ from school to school. Some schools have exterior doors to the classroom, and it might make sense for the cohorts to sit 6 feet apart by their classroom door. Fidalgo is a little different, so we have another space designated for this. What we do know is the bus garage is not going to be dropping the kids off more than about 10 minutes, 15 minutes max before the start of school. So shortly after getting off the bus and lining up, it'll be close to 9, and Maria's teacher will greet her and the rest of the class. The teacher will have a list from our school secretary by then of which parents have filled out the attestation form. So hopefully that's everyone, but we know that's going to be getting into some good habits for a while, and some people might forget. So if Maria's attestation is filled out, great, she gets to go in the classroom. If not, she'll be sent to, I think the libraries are going to be our waiting room. Kids will be seated 6 feet apart. It'll be staffed until our school secretaries can reach out, call the parents, and just go over the attestation questions over the phone. As soon as that's been completed, Maria's back off to class. Yeah, I think that completes all the questions under number 2.
Great. All right, so Maria now is in class, and she's in her homeschool class. We were planning multiple questions that we asked and problems that we solved. But the main ones are, how are her tables and desks arranged? What happens if she needs to go to the bathroom? What activities occur during her homeroom? May I have another principal please address these questions?
Absolutely, Justin. I'm Brian Hanrahan, the principal at Island View. Thank you for joining us this evening. Our staff, our teachers, and our custodians have worked very hard to get classrooms really bare of everything except the essential furniture and materials needed. So in each classroom, there is only the number of desks needed for the number of students in each cohort. And those desks are arranged 6 feet away from one another, seat to seat. And all the desks are facing the same direction toward the front of the classroom.
Great.
The next question is regarding bathroom use. So teachers will monitor bathroom use carefully and allow only one student to leave the classroom at any given time to go to the restroom, barring emergencies, of course. And there may be incidental contact in the bathroom or on the way to the bathroom, but never will that contact be deemed close contact, just given the transitory nature of bathroom visits. And the activities in the classroom are where teachers will focus on 3 things: reading, math, and social emotional learning. And I think across the board, our teachers have done an amazing job creating relationships in this remote setting, and that will continue when students are in person in the classroom. So in terms of what Maria learns in class, as I just mentioned, the focus will be on reading, math, and social emotional learning. And the teachers will grade and assess, monitor progress, and support students as they always have, whether that's remote or in person. The peers in the class will be literally half the number of the students in that classroom, by and large. And in terms of that last question, the objects shared with others. So the district is providing basic school supplies and bins for students so that they do not have to share those classroom materials from day to day or ever. And the classroom supplies that parents provided can stay at home. They do not need to come to school. There may be incidental sharing of other classroom supplies, manipulatives for math, for instance, but never will those supplies be shared between cohorts, only within cohorts, and then cleaned adequately between cohort breaks.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Henran. So as students are learning, there will be opportunities for frequent cleaning and sanitation throughout the building, as well as during that 2-hour break, which we'll get to in a minute, but between that 2-hour transition between cohorts. But we will be cleaning high-touch surface areas throughout the day, as well as in the evenings. So Maria goes home at 11:20. If she's a bus rider, it's 11:30. If she is a car pickup, we're trying to stagger the amount of traffic in the parking lots. I know, as you all can imagine, parking lots are going to be full. And so we are trying to reduce the traffic flow as much as possible. And so please, could I have another principal please talk about this exit process?
Sure. I'm Kevin Schwartz, and I'm the principal at Mount Erie Elementary School. And thank you all for taking the time tonight to listen in and ask some great questions. So I appreciate everybody's time with us. In terms of the slide you're looking at here, the one thing I just wanted to kind of comment on was how the hallways are set up. Hallways generally are going to be pretty bare in the school because students will not generally be accessing the halls except for to use the bathroom. So, and I know that's a little different depending on each school. Fidalgo and Island View have different configuration than Mount Erie does. But for the most part, the hallways are going to be pretty bare. We won't see desks in the hallways like we've had in the past where students might be working in small groups and things like that. In terms of exiting the school, again, a little bit different for each school, and you'll get communication from all of us, whether it's Mrs. Dowd from Fidalgo, Mr. Hanrahan from Island View, or myself, on how those entrance and exit procedures will happen at the individual schools. And you should expect that, I think, by Wednesday. But for Mount Erie, for example, we will have our students exit from their exterior classroom door rather than obviously going down the hallways as large groups of kids. And they will leave the classrooms, like I said, from the exterior doors, and we will have directions for them all to go. We have locations for students to be picked up. We have locations for the bus to pick them up. And then if there are students that are walking home, we will notify you of where they'll be going for that as well. One thing that we can't have are parents collecting in front of the school waiting to pick up their students. That's obviously a challenge, and I know, the culture at all the schools has been that the entrance has been a gathering place for parents to pick up kids at the end of the day. I've always loved seeing that, and it's been a wonderful part of the way we've ended our school day, but we just can't do that anymore because of obviously the social distancing requirements. So parents, when they come to pick up their students, must remain in their cars. Obviously, buses will be ready to pick up kids, and then if kids are walking home, rather than coming on campus to meet them, we will have you be across the street. So those are really the things about leaving the school day that's important. In terms of ending our school day, I think you heard Dr. Irish say that there will be a little bit of a stagger. Our buses will be departing a little earlier to make sure that those buses are out of the way and providing us with enough space for families to come in for those who are picking up their kids. As far as coordinating the supervision before school, after school, we will have all hands on deck as far as staffing goes in our schools that we can to make sure that students safely get into their classroom and also are directed where they need to go at the end of the day. And again, that process will be a little different depending on the configuration of the school. So you will get more information from the individual individual schools based on where your child attends. And then, once you've gotten your child home, what happens in the second half of the day? There will be continued learning. I know we've used the term asynchronous learning, but that's just really learning that is happening without the direct connection of a teacher or employee. And for the asynchronous part of the day, that's when students will have music, PE, some additional classroom work, and then science. And that's really the bulk of the other half of the day for your students. They will not be graded on those subjects. So music, PE, and science are not graded, but they do get attendance taken on those. And those are just for participation. So the grade will be satisfactory or unsatisfactory, and it's based on attendance and whether or not they participated. So hopefully those questions are answered. And again, like I said, the elementary principals will be putting some information together to share out with families that are specific to their school, because it's really it's quite different depending on the location of the elementaries.
Thank you, Mr. Schwartz. Okay, so we have this posted on our website. I know this is small, but I wanted to give you a big picture glance. We do have our schedule of what the day will look like for your child, depending on whether they're in cohort A or cohort B. Here is try to blow this up as much as I can, but we do have for cohort A in the morning here, they will be in-person learning focusing on Ruler, which is our social emotional curriculum, and then core instruction, which would be whole class and small group for our EL program, which is our reading program, Foundations, which is our literacy literacy program, and Eureka Math. And then they will have more core instruction after they'll have a mid-time break in the middle of this period to move around and get their wiggles out. And then they will have, then they will switch to asynchronous or offline learning at home. And that will be, as Mr. Short said, science, music, and PE. And then it's the exact opposite for cohort B. So that is an example of a day in the life or the daily schedule. And that repeats on Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. And then Wednesdays will be synchronous, asynchronous learning throughout the day. Can principal please add, is there any other details to add, principals or anybody else?
Dr. Irish, I was just going to add something if that's okay.
Please.
I was just going to add that classroom teachers will be sending some work during the part of the day when kids are not in person. So there may be some literacy or math activities, some that could be a paper pencil, kind of like homework packet, or it may be something on their devices. I will mention also that if there is other activities such as art, that those kinds of things would be happening while students are at school. So there may be some projects or art or additional things that are going to be happening, similar to when kids would have been in school in a typical school year. But really the prioritization will be literacy and math for the majority of that time.
Thank you. I just want to reiterate too, as I'm looking at this calendar or this schedule, that it's in order to ease up the traffic flow and as well as to make sure that kids are safe and that kids are supervised, we are asking that you please do not drop your students off earlier than that 15-minute window, or to pick up your kids later. We want to make sure that your kids are safe, that they have supervision, and that they're not arriving at school really early and waiting around. Or that we are, there's that sweet spot to pick them up either in person through your vehicle or on the bus. And I know we're going to do our best to try to make the parking lots as efficient as possible so that you are not frustrated with the congestion. But please have patience with us that first week as we work out kinks. Our principals and staff will be working really hard to make that process as efficient for you as possible. So there are some what if scenarios that we want to make sure you know that we have been preparing for. So, you know, what if Maria, so this is if Maria's on the bus again, where does she go after disembarking the bus? We talked about that. She goes in line, but who conducts her health screening and how? So a dedicated staff member wearing a face covering will review and look for any visual signs of illness. If Maria's health screening was completed and passed, and if her attestation is good and that was turned in and she appears well, she will enter her school building and go as normal. But what if there's a divergent path? What if she fails her health screening? Who will supervise her? I'm going to ask our school nurse to walk us through this process. So Emily, would you please take us through this what if scenario?
Yes, so if Maria failed her health screening, she would be directed to go to our STAR room, which is our student treatment and reevaluation room. And she will be met by trained health staff who will contact her family to pick her up. And the family will be advised of our current illness protocol guidelines from the health department. She would reach out to, her parents would reach out to their healthcare provider to check in, and their healthcare provider may determine that she needs a COVID-19 test. And in this scenario, she was determined to need a test and her parents took her to be tested. If Maria's test comes back positive, then her doctor would notify local health officials who will work with the school and direct us to perform deep cleaning of identified spaces and conduct necessary communications and notification as needed. How does Maria continue her education while in quarantine? She will need to remain home for 10 days as directed by health officials. And when she is feeling well enough, she may continue some of her schoolwork remotely.
And in this case, you would work directly with your classroom teacher and principal to, when she is well. We do not expect kids to, just as if a normal year pre-COVID, they were sick, we wouldn't expect them to necessarily engage in learning. While they're sick, we want them to recover and focus on their health. There are protocols also in place. So what happens if Maria was in close contact with other students and she tested positive for COVID? Emily, can you please address that issue?
So if Maria had been in close contact with someone or a few students and we have determined that she has had a positive test, we would work with the health department to conduct contact tracing, and the health department would notify students who may have been in close contact with Maria within 6 feet for approximately 15 minutes total. And they would notify them and direct them to self-quarantine.
Thank you, Emily. If the Department of Health may, if we have an outbreak in our school, determine that we need to close our school or close a specific cohort of students, close the classroom down. We would work closely with the Department of Health to determine whether or not we would need to do that. For example, an outbreak is determined if there are 2 or more cases within close contact in the same cohort, and then working with our county health department. Again, we would go through contact tracing, notify that whole process, notify people in this process, and then we would possibly close down cohort A and cohort B in that classroom for 2 weeks. Anything more to add to that, Emily?
No, that was a great summary.
Thank you. Okay. All right. So next steps, each elementary school will be hosting a school-specific webinar this Wednesday. The session will also be recorded in case you want to review it at another date and time. We didn't add, actually, I think every school, not just Island View, is that true? Every school, Mount Erie, Fidalgo, and Island View will be hosting this Wednesday at 5 to 6. If you cannot make it, again, that is fine. You will be recorded. You can review it at any time. We just want to make sure that you hear from your principal and that you gather specific information about the uniqueness of each building and the needs of that community. And that we really believe that we want to over communicate right now. We want to make sure you feel good, that you feel safe, and that your questions can be answered. At any time during this process, please reach out to your principal if you have questions, and your principal can help you at any time. So going through some of the chat, I'll just start backwards here. Will we be requiring students to travel out of state? Will you be requiring students traveling out of state to test before returning? No, we would require that the families go through the attestation process. If a child is showing symptoms after they've been out of state, we would not want them to come to school. If they are showing any symptoms at all, we would ask them to talk to their medical provider, and their medical provider may ask them to do a COVID test. But we would not be doing any testing. We will be doing our regular health screening every day, and if a student is showing symptoms, we would then respond accordingly. But we have students who are, we have families traveling out of state. We have students who are, even in my own neighborhood, playing with each other out at recess. It's very hard to monitor the social distancing and the individual rights of parents across our community. So, but we will be checking diligently every day for symptoms and making sure that we're communicating and monitoring that attestation process. Rachel, you had asked about will art not be continuing. I think that was addressed, but we will be integrating art into our work with students. Karen, you asked weren't the leftover capital improvement funds moved to the general fund, and would those funds help cover some of those expenses? We cannot mix. It is not okay for us to transfer capital improvement into the general fund. If we did that, we would be audited and fined. That is something we cannot do. Capital project funds stay with capital project, and they have to remain there. We can only use our general fund, basic ed dollars for general fund. And then will meals be provided at school for students to take home, or will families still need to pick up the meals from the current designated locations twice a week? Yes, we are asking families, we're going to keep with the same process. We don't want kids to have to transport multiple bags of food with them and on the bus or carrying that around. So we are switching up our meal pickup places so that they will align with your student schedule, so that you're not waiting or having to go out of the way to get your meals each week. And then what does the cleaning and disinfection protocol process look like in between the cohorts and before the next day? So we will have high touch surfaces cleaned every day between the cohorts and at the end of the day. So everything from our desks to our fountains. Students will not be drinking out of individual water fountains. They will have water bottles, so those will be actually closed off. But when kids are washing their hands in the sink area will be cleaned. Bathrooms will be cleaned. Counters, all high touch surfaces will be cleaned between cohorts and at the end of the day. Okay, so we have some more questions. Jeffrey, you had asked, the governor said last week that the worst thing we could do now is to put a bunch of strangers in a confined space. That being said, wouldn't it be prudent to delay the in-person return to school, especially given the sharp upturn in the new COVID-19 cases? This is where I am relying on the expertise of our healthcare professionals. I am an expert in education. I'm not an expert with health, and I am relying heavily on a collaboration with Skagit County Health and their recommendations. They are recommending that we do open up our schools for our elementary kids based on the moderate rate. And with that recommendation, we have a lot of families who are asking us to open up our schools. We are following their recommendations. We are making sure that all of our cleaning protocols are in place. Our contact tracing is in place. We're going to go slow and steady. We're not opening up all of our schools at once. We're starting with K-5 and making sure that we have kids in cohorts that don't interface with other cohorts. So I understand the question. I appreciate it, and we want to do everything we can to keep kids safe. And at the same time, our medical professionals are saying that it is safe to open our schools, and we have many families asking us to open our schools. Will temperatures be taken at school as part of the health screening? No, we are not. That was the original recommendation from the county and department, but actually there has been a lot of changes and recommendations from our healthcare providers. I'm going to turn this over to Emily, who is a healthcare provider and expert. Emily, would you please address that question?
Yeah, temperatures are one piece of information that we could gather, but they have a lot of variables on efficiency with that. So at this time, the temperature check is included in the morning health screening that parents will be providing.
Thank you.
Dr. Irish, I wanted to let you know that Marty is has joined our panel, so he can speak to the custodial cleaning and HVAC questions that may be
Excellent.
available.
Great, and that so Evie, you have a question specific to school HVAC systems. Are you maximizing outside air? Have the filters been upgraded? How many air changes per hour are there? Are you relying on windows being open? Marty, would you please address that question?
We had our controls contractor in for 4 days last week doing point-to-point checks to verify that all of our devices are currently working as they're designed. We've installed new filters. I know that there's been a question about MERV 13 filters. Our air handling systems in our schools, all but the high school, were built and designed over 25 years ago. They're not made to run MERV 13 filters in them. It's too big of a restriction. So it would actually diminish the airflow in the classrooms if they were installed. We use MERV 8s. We have a really good filter program. Northwest Air Pollution Authority uses our schools as a poster child for indoor air. I allowed them to go through our buildings in the past and do samples. We have CO sensors in our classrooms that will drive the outside air open automatically if the CO levels get too high. I've increased those. I've diminished the number, which will increase the outside air. We currently are doing the same exact system that Oak Harbor is using. One issue you can run into with open windows or open doors is the systems were designed and balanced with the doors and the windows closed. So the best air changes you can get are going to be when you can have a balanced system in the room. We have set the air, or the rooms are set to do, I think it's 6 air changes or more per hour. It depends on what the load is in the room. It'll increase with the amount of outside air that's coming into the building. The only building that we currently have that runs 100% the outside air is the new high school, and it was designed that way from the day that it was installed. We're maximizing the outside air. We have a good filter program. We've had all of our controls back-checked, and the ones that weren't 100% are currently being put into play 100%, and we'll be there before school starts.
Thank you, Marty. Marty has just done an incredible job of maintaining over the years our buildings and the HVAC systems, but the special attention right now due to this pandemic. I am very, very proud to be leading Anacortes School District with such an incredible team, and Marty is an expert in this area. So thank you, Marty, for everything that you're doing. Rachel, so if students are, I missed the other question. So, and if that is the case, does it revert back to the model we're currently using with remote learning, or do they miss out on the foundations of math learning during this quarantine? So I'm assuming this means that when you have kids, if kids are in quarantine, they are required to stay home. So it could be that if all kids are required to stay home within the cohort A and B in that particular classroom, we would revert back to the normal remote learning that your child is experiencing now. If it is 1 or 2 students who need to quarantine at home, if they're quarantining at home because they are ill, we want to make sure that they focus on their health and that they're not doing schoolwork. We would want them to stay healthy and, to focus on getting healthy. If a student is quarantined because they had contact but are not showing symptoms or are not ill, you would work with your classroom teacher and principal, and they would design a specific learning for your child to do as they would in a normal year if a child is at home. The teachers are not able to provide synchronous and asynchronous learning at the same time. So that would be not possible, but they would be providing accommodations for your child during that quarantine. Emily, would you like to answer more of that question?
No, just, reiterating your point that when students are not feeling well, we want them to feel better in order to focus back on their learning. But yes, there is quite a few questions about the 10 days staying home. And so our current illness policy is that if a child does not pass their health screening, including some of the minor symptoms such as a runny nose or a sore throat, they would be directed to stay home for 10 days unless they determine with their healthcare provider that they should be tested. And in the event of a negative test, the student would be able to return to school 24 hours after they were fever-free or their symptoms resolved.
Okay. And then Patricia just asked Emily, as a parent of a child with a significant allergies, am I going to get a phone call every time he has a cough or a sneeze?
It's important that if to double check with the school offices that we have record of any allergies on file so that we can also look at that information and have a prior history of that information. Of course, if we are ever wondering, we will certainly reach out to families to gather more information as needed. But if there's a known condition that would that makes it so that the student doesn't pass their screening, such as a runny nose related to seasonal allergies, that would not qualify them to fail the screening. They would still be permitted to come to school.
Thank you, Emily. So there's more questions, and as you've been sharing. So if a child has a runny nose, the only way to avoid the 10-day quarantine is to get a negative COVID test.
Yes, that is correct. And the reasoning behind that is that there's no way to know for sure that we are seeing just a cold or we are seeing COVID-19. It presents so differently in different people, and different symptoms can show up. And so we just want to err on the side of caution to keep all of our kids and families safe. So our current guidance right now is to stay home 10 days when you're not feeling well, or choosing to get a test does sometimes speed up that process in the event that that is the direction that a family and a healthcare provider would like to go.
And Teresa, you asked if our local healthcare providers are ready. We've been working with them, and we also have there's testing at the community college available as well. But we are it's all hands on deck. I am also, for example, partnering with our local hospital and working with them regularly as well. So we are trying our best to collaborate with everybody and to meet. We want our kids in person. We want them safe, and we want them learning. And so we're doing everything we can to collaborate and make that happen. Ramani, you asked, I was looking at the transportation schedule, and for the PM cohort students getting to school by bus, looks like they won't arrive at the school until 15-20 minutes after the 1 o'clock start time. Will teachers be able to teach anything new during this time? What is the plan for students who will be at school at the 1 o'clock start time? Can I have one of my principals talk about that? Or Angie.
Sure, I can respond.
Thank you,
Justin. So it's a great question, and none of us appreciate that there's going to be a delay in having our bus riders at school. Typically, teachers offer an opportunity at the beginning of class time to do some work to catch up, or to catch up and relish, catch up on some work, or do some practice activities. So I think by and large, teachers will not be directly instructing students during that 20-minute time or offering new instruction. Teachers are very, very aware that all students need to be in the classroom when new learning is taking place.
It's also an opportunity for us to stagger and to make sure that we are social distancing or physically distancing as kids are transitioning in and out. And it's a way to reduce the congestion in the hallways and parking lots.
I was going to add that teachers typically do some sort of independent entry work at the beginning of the day while they're taking attendance. But I know some teachers are looking forward just to an opportunity to greet kids individually and maybe have a chance to check in with learning. Teachers like to do small group or individual instruction, so it kind of offers that opportunity. And so I know that they're planning for that and won't do core whole class until all the students are there.
So what about the students with the most need in other buildings, such as the high school? They will be returning to 4 days a week. Any information on what that might look like? Yeah, we've been engaging in conversations about that. Our focus right now has been on trying to get elementary up and running. As you have heard us all share, there has been multiple problem solving that we've had to do. So our energy has been focused on getting creating the most safe environment possible and the most rigorous learning environment possible. However, with that said, we have been focusing on what does it look like in the middle and high school to increase our services for those who are in most need. Can I have Becky or Shannon address that, please? Becky or Shannon?
Sorry, I can't find the unmute. Can we repeat the question? Just, I had some background noise, so I missed part of that.
Yes, so how are we supporting, for the secondary students, I was talking about the planning process for increasing services for those most in need at secondary schools.
What we have been working on is actually coordinating with transportation and just the team in general. The secondary is looking at trying to actually bring some of those students back 4 days a week a little sooner to get them into that routine of being back on campus again. So we've got them on site for 2 days now, and we're just working with the team and the different entities, transportation, things of that sort, to see if we can advance that. And despite all of that, those teams are working with the students. We have those kids on site 2 days a week now, and they are providing supports with the para staff and the teachers to also work with those kids with their gen ed classes as well as their special ed classes within asynchronous opportunities, as well as coordinating with Zooms and supporting students in class.
Thank you, Shannon.
Mm-hmm.
Rachel asked, how are grades being handled if a child is out sick for 10 days each time they show symptoms and not working on core during that time? Great question. Could I have Angie, Shannon, or Becky address that, please?
Sure, I'm happy to address it. I was just typing an answer to Rachel. I was saying that teachers definitely will be providing work and lessons that students can complete at home when they're absent, just like they would you know, in a typical year when students have an extended illness or or go on vacation. The advantage this year is that we have some asynchronous video resources we've been using for math and literacy that are going to be available. Teachers have the ability to still put assignments and lessons on Schoology. So you can expect if your child has to be out, that they would still be provided with some work that they can do when they're at home.
Okay. Well, go ahead.
I would just add that the big piece, if you have your student that's going to be out, is to make sure that you communicate with this teacher and the principal so that we can make arrangements to best support the student once they're feeling better, as well as, you know, helping them integrate and not miss out on a lot of instruction while they're out, just like we would if they were sick in a regular year.
Thank you. All right, I want to thank you all for joining us today, and please share with your neighbors that they can access this online. We will be posting it as well as the questions and answers. Again, I want to thank you for your continual grace and partnership as we navigate this new world that we are all facing together. We're in this together. Again, I appreciate you for providing feedback. I appreciate it when I know that there's decisions that we've had to make. Again, I know that some of those decisions people have not liked. And I appreciate that everybody in this community has engaged in such a productive way, and I appreciate you for that. None of us want to be in this situation, and we can't wait for this to be over and to resume school as we normally would. And in the meantime, we will do everything possible to support you and your children that we can with the restrictions that we face, the conditions that we face, and the limited resources that we face. We want your child to be safe. We want you to be safe. We want our staff to be safe. And we want your child to engage with other kids. We want them to be in a socially rich environment, and we want them to provide have daily live instruction in person where the teacher can give them regular feedback about their learning so that we can support their academic and social growth. We appreciate you, and at any time if you have questions, please reach out to your principals and or to me, and we are here to support you in this transition. We hope that the first week and the second week that we bring kids back are smooth. We have tried to plan for every possible scenario, but as we know, sometimes things happen. And when that happens, again, we appreciate your grace, and we will be working out kinks every stage of this process. So thank you for everything, and thank you to the staff who attended today and who provided feedback and answers to our community's questions. I hope you all have a wonderful evening, and we will be continuing to communicate with you on a regular basis. Thank you very, very, very much, and have a great evening.
And don't forget to join on Wednesday at your individual schools webinars.
Yeah, your principals will be communicating with you about and giving you access to that link. So thank you so very much.